Welcome to Left, Right, Center, where we are covering Colorado politics. First on CBS News Colorado. I'm political reporter Sean Boyd. We start with a $67 million mistake that translates into a windfall for taxpayers. On the same day Governor Polis signed the state budget into law, we learned it's short millions of dollars due to a mistake by the Health Insurance Affordability Enterprise. An audit revealed the state controller has been treating tax dollars the enterprise receives as exempt from state revenue limits under the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, or TABOR, but it's not. That means the state will now owe taxpayers $67 million more in TABOR refunds than anticipated. As for where the money will come from, Senator Barb Kirkmeyer, who sits on the Joint Budget Committee, introduced a bill that would use money the enterprise would have received this year and next year to help cover about $33 million of the refund. The other $34 million will likely be covered by money from the State Reserve Fund. Joining me, our analysts, Republican Dick Bottoms and Democrat Mike Dino. So, Mike, Republicans point out that last fall, Democrats refused to use the reserve to help fund the property tax cuts. They called it fiscally irresponsible, but now they'll use it for this.
Yeah, no, well, I think the biggest mistake is maybe they knew about this a little, sooner than they actually admit, and they could have got to it. Yeah, there are two solutions. There may be a legislative solution. I mean, there are 6 days left, and they've got till Monday to introduce bills. Again, they're rethinking on the Joint Budget Committee. Well, maybe we'll dip in the reserve. And the third thing is maybe the economy will turn out to be well. They'll get a good legislative economic forecast in the next quarter. Which is possible because that is predicted. And so they might be able to get out of this and deal with something else more important.
Yeah, that would be the best, right?
Exactly.
If the economy does well.
Exactly.
Dick, Mike touched on that this came out earlier than what lawmakers found out about. The audit came out in February, the results of it, but then the auditor sought an opinion from the Attorney General's office, which kind of delayed this. Still, it seems like the Joint Budget Committee should have gotten a heads up on this sooner.
No doubt, and Barbara Kirkmeyer is correct that it should have. And Sean, in reading her comments and her proposal to deal with this problem, I wanted her badly to win that race for Congress a year ago. But you know what? She is really a powerful and positive influence in that legislature. And the fact that she came up, I think, with a legitimate plan to deal with this right away tells you that she's a leader. She's vastly outnumbered, but when you're that good of a legislator, the cream rises to the top, and she's a good example of that.
She does not want to use the state reserve,
right.
though. In fact, she said, hey, look, it was the controller's mistake, maybe some of the enterprise's mistake. Take it from them and use their money to do this.
Well, she's in the minority on the Joint Budget Committee, so she may have to lump it.
I don't think that one's going to fly. Well, speaking of taxes, a last-minute compromise between Democratic and Republican leadership at the Capitol will result in what some say is the biggest income tax cut in state history. The compromise cuts the income tax rate between 0.04 and 0.15% while providing $700 million in tax credits for low-income Coloradans. The income tax reduction would kick in when the state revenue exceeds the TABOR, Taxpayer Bill of Rights, cap by at least $300 million. The more revenue over the cap, the bigger the reduction. If revenue exceeds the cap by more than $1.5 billion, the state's sales tax could also be reduced by 0.13%. This year's cut will amount to about $450 million in savings. So, Dick, you surprised by this compromise?
Yes and no. Yes, because Democrats just instinctively don't like tax cuts. But I think they're finally getting the message. Taxpayers do like tax cuts, and every time it goes on the ballot, it gets passed. And John Caldera and the Independence Institute, they continue to put these on the ballot. They always pass. And I think it's a credit to... Now, Governor Polis, in his fairness to him, he has advocated for this in the past, and I give him credit for that. So I think maybe they're getting the joke finally that, taxpayers kind of like this.
Yeah, well, they do have the $700 million in tax credits for the low-income Coloradans, which I know Democrats were very, very excited about. And Mike, since the higher income earners pay more in taxes, the cut will obviously mean more to them. Are you surprised that Democrats agreed to this? And Dick touched on this. Polis certainly has been behind this. Do you think he kind of nudged them?
Well, yeah, I mean, in his State of the State, he said, hey, I want to do this. And Dick's right. I mean, since he's been governor, he's been about trying to reduce the state income tax. Now, I think the next 2 years, we'll see something happen along the lines that they're prescribing. After that, it's unclear whether that's going to hold. Tabor refunds and other things will come into play. The Dems kind of cut a deal that works for them, and the Republicans, I think, feel good about it too. So it's one of those win-wins that you need at the end of the session,
yeah,
because they don't have much time. They don't have much time to pass it.
Right. Everybody gets a little from this one. Well, this was the week of compromise at the state capitol. In addition to the big tax cut, Governor Polis announced environmentalists and the state's top 3 oil and gas producers cut a deal. As part of their pact, both sides would agree to pull proposed ballot measures for this fall and support a package of air quality bills. Among the provisions in the bills, a new rule that would result in a 50% reduction in nitrogen oxides by 2030, an annual report on investigations and enforcement actions, more protections for disproportionately impacted communities, and a fee on oil and gas production ranging from 5 cents a barrel to 30 cents a barrel, depending on the market. So, Mike, as part of this compromise, both sides agreed to a 3-year truce on bills and ballot measures. You think that's going to hold up?
Yeah, I mean, they've done this before. It's kind of pulling a rabbit out of the hat. We saw early in the session the Dems were going after oil and gas, wanted to, put a moratorium on new wells by 2030. Dick was pretty vexed about that, several months ago. But so we've seen it kind of come all the way around. Now, the interesting part of this, they're generating money for our regional transportation district to finish out a couple lines, the North Line and the Northwest Line. It's kind of dubious whether they have that will generate enough money, particularly for the Northwest Line up to your neck of the woods and in the Longmont, through Boulder and Longmont. But that's still unclear how that's going to play out, but it is generating money for transit, and that does help get the Democratic votes.
Right. So, Dick, the Colorado Oil and Gas Association, which was not part of this negotiation, interestingly, said there are already dozens of regulations in the process of being implemented still, but it welcomed the stability. I mean, that's really what this is about for the industry, right?
No doubt. I think a lot of rational Democrats, Sean, and there are a few, that
Mike's one of them.
And Mike is certainly one of them.
It depends on the day.
My friend Mike is. But we're terrified of that extreme measure that would ban oil drilling by 2030, because it was going to wreck the Colorado economy. And I think that they saw that looming out there, and they said, we've got to get ahead of this. And I think the oil industry, they do want some certainty in terms of the next few years. And so I think once again, it's a win-win. But Koga is right, though. There are so many things that are still being implemented in terms of regulating the industry that people should appreciate that the industry is being very responsible right now and still providing jobs and boosting the economy. So.
All right, finally, more drama in the Colorado Republican Party. It's Dick's favorite topic. Colorado Politics reports that 2 GOP congressional candidates are refusing to participate in the party's endorsement process, which includes a questionnaire that asks not only about a candidate's policy positions, but whether they support Donald Trump and if they agree with the GOP's attempt to block unaffiliated voters from participating in primaries. State Representative Gabe Evans and Board of Education member Stephen Varela won top-line designations at their district assemblies and say the support of grassroots Republicans is what matters, which is why they're not participating. Candidates who petition on the ballot are not eligible for the party's endorsement. So, Dick, the party is not only endorsing candidates, but attacking some of the other Republicans who are running against them. That just doesn't, I don't know. How does that sit with you?
It's it's unprecedented. We've never had a state party or a state chairman who have actively interjected themselves in primaries. Sean, this is the bottom line. Dave Williams has been chairman for about a year. He has done nothing but conduct an inquisition to try to remove anybody who does not agree with his personal ambitions and his narrow ideological agenda. He wants to purge and purify the Colorado Republican Party, which includes people like me, by the way. And it's disgusting. He is driving the state to a one-party situation, and this is the latest example of it. Gabe Evans and Stephen Varela should be complimented. They basically told the state party to go pound sand, and I appreciate that. But this is just another example of how this party is becoming irrelevant.
You know, it's interesting. Williams will get he's running for the Lamborn seat, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And so he'll get the endorsement.
It's amazing, yes. Yes.
So, you know, Mike, there are some interesting primaries on the Democratic side. 4 incumbent state lawmakers face primary challenges, including 2 rather controversial representatives, Elizabeth Epps and Tim Hernandez. You know, it's rare that an incumbent has a primary challenger in Colorado. So do you think they're vulnerable, Epps and Hernandez?
Well, Tim Hernandez represents me in House District 4, where I was born and live and never moving from. He was appointed by vacancy committee, so that will make him a little vulnerable. But our House district has really moved to the left considerably. The woman who's running against him isn't, you know, a moderate or over on the right to any extreme either. So it'll be really how you turn out the vote. Epps is a Democratic socialist, and she didn't show up for the first 45 days of the legislature. The traditional Democratic base doesn't care for her, but the Democratic Socialists got their vote out 2 years ago, and I expect they'll try to do that again this year.
What do you think is driving this, though, the challenges?
I think that it's the differences within the party. You have an extreme left in the party,
right,
and then you have a more moderate group of people, and that are more traditional Democrats, and you know, they want to vie for who's going to be in charge.
I think some Jewish Democrats too were partly behind these challenges,
sure,
because they were upset that both Epps and Hernandez were pro-Palestinian.
Exactly, and that is a important part of the party, particularly in Denver.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for this installment of Left, Right, Center. We'll see you next week.